And good evening. It's Friday night. Dove Valley Deep Divers. We are going to get started here. I'm obviously not Lance. I am Scott Kennedy. I'll be your co-host along with Erick Trickel. But we want to bring in our Facebook groups here real quick so we can get the whole fam damnly in. So as they come in, we'll get started here and have a Friday night to get going and talk some money, talk some contracts. And we are, come on, good. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Dove Valley Deep Divers. I'm sitting in for Lance as a co-host tonight with Erick Trickel, this guy over here. We got a good show for you tonight. I might be biased on that one, though, but hopefully be a good show for you tonight. We're going to talk some money, talk some contracts as we get into camp. This is the last Friday before camp. Erick, how you feeling?
Feeling good. I mean, it's football's finally here, and as I was saying last week with Lance, this time of year is always tough for, creating content, either written or doing the podcasts, because there's not a whole lot going on. That ends next week. Unfortunately, we even had some big news this week that, kind of kick us in the butt to get us going as things start to ramp up. But it's exciting that real football, being able to see everything out there on the field is, finally approaching instead of having to talk about hypotheticals.
Well, and the thing is that I say it's not even the hypotheticals anymore. This is the time of hope. So there's no room for negativity. Everything's awesome. Every free agent we got is going to be good. Every guy we drafted was underdrafted. Everybody's a steal, and there's no room for, well, maybe not. maybe every one of those guys isn't going to take a step. There's no room for that. Once we get into playing football and we start seeing, okay, the realism kick in, that's when I enjoy it a little bit more. But I'm going to looking forward to being with you tonight. I haven't been on a night show, it feels like, in a while. And one of the reasons we go live every night on Mile High Huddle is to say hello to some folks because we like having the conversation with you. So I want to say hello to Dylan Von Arks. Good to see you. DVA. He says, "Sup, Broncos country." Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all your platforms, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Get that notification ding when you are subscribed. Gordon comes in as the title of the show says, "Which Broncos are next up for an extension?" He says, "Whoever earns it." Boy, we're done. Eric, it was a great show tonight. We will see you next week. David Youngkin says the one and only PS2 is the next to get that bag. I disagree on that one, but we'll get into that one for sure. I want to call you Major League Baseball every time MBL test prep, but he's here to party. Ron, he's talking numbers already, and we'll get into those as well. He's talking about minors on a $20 million 50-year option for Surtain. I think is 19 and change, 31 million in dead cap. Thanks, Russ. Don't blame Russ for that. But yes, plenty of money to go around. Broncos are right in the middle of the pack next year on available cap space. So this year was really the only year of true cap hell. Mm-hmm. Then you're through it. Then you're saving $25 million for moving on from Russ. Shiloh coming in, evening fellas. PS2 is the obvious extension. Maybe not so obvious because he has 2 years of control left, 3 if you count a franchise tag, Erick.
Yeah, I mean, that's where everybody wanted to go, and I kind of figured it was coming when I, sent in the topic for the night. But that 5th-year option is the biggest one, and you see a lot of teams with that, having that 5th-year option. They don't give that, unless it's a quarterback, really. They don't give that contract extension until they're about to play on that 5th-year option, that final year of it, to avoid the franchise tag. And, as you said, the Broncos, they can even push it and have him play on a franchise tag for a year. So I'm not sure. I think that we'll see probably Patrick Surtain after this season, but he's not the guy that I think is up next.
And here's the thing: we were looking at it the other day. The top corner contracts. There doesn't seem to be a monster. We've seen some market resets at a lot of different positions: wide receiver, quarterback, guard, defensive tackles, edge. Where we haven't seen it is cornerback. I don't think we see it this year either because there's nobody in the class before Pat Surtain that's really going to be worth a max type of contract, a contract that's worth more than anybody else's. So it will be the year when Patrick Surtain comes up. And I think he's going to be a $25 million a year guy. I can see 5 years, 125 with 75 guaranteed, which ends up being a 3-year, $25 million a year type of deal. But again, I'm with you. I think that happens in about 11 months.
Mhm.
not in or whenever the deal is done, whenever the deadlines are for the next year before the fifth year option. But I think that happens next year, Eric.
Yeah, and when you look at it with the whole extension, it takes 2 to tango, and I don't see a reason for Patrick Surtain to take an extension right now. As you said, 25,000,000 a year, we gotta wait for that, that big reset of the cornerback market. We don't have it. The highest is 21,000,000 on an average per year basis. I don't see the point of him holding or not holding out to try to get that 25,000,000 a year contract instead of settling in at 21, maybe 22,000,000 this year. Give him
Yeah,
that other give him that year of play.
his fifth year option is going to be worth plenty of money.
Yeah. And then just go from there because there are some other free agent or, you know, eligible for extension corners after this year that and free agent corners that you can sit there and see that market potentially get reset. One of them, AJ Terrell with the Falcons. He's probably looking at a pretty big one as far as I'm familiar with. Paulson Adebo, he's had a pretty good year for the pretty good few seasons for the Saints. There's multiple players out there that could be in line to reset that market that then Sertan can, take advantage of.
I think in the class, what is that class? 2021 that Pat Surtain was in. So the 2020 class, we were looking through it the other day, and I think Jalen Johnson, he got a deal already because he was a second round pick, I believe. So he was coming up on his deal. AJ Terrell is playing on his fifth year option this year. I don't think AJ Terrell is going to be in the market resetting type anymore. I think he was on that path 2 years ago where PFF had him as like a top 3 corner in the NFL. That was Surtain's rookie year, I believe. But then he's just been good, really good. So I think Terrell is going to be in that top 10 range, and he's the best corner in that class, in the class of 2020, leading into Surtain's class. So, and there you start looking at the top corners, and it's guys that have been playing on their deals for a couple years already. And you're not going to give a $20+ million deal to a 30-year-old corner anymore, are you, Eric?
I mean, you shouldn't. There's enough history there that, age 30, 31, obviously some exceptions, but that tends to be the point where you start to see corners kind of start to fall off a little bit and regress. So if you're given that big contract that age, you're taking a very big risk.
Yeah, the Jair Alexander is still the highest average paid, which I can't believe because he makes me angry watching him play. Guys that just ankle bite and die and just avoid contact in football make me mad. Not that he say he wouldn't whoop my ass up and down the field, but that's beside the point. I'm not getting $20 million a year. Denzel Ward is next. Marshawn Lattimore is third, and I'm not sure how far these guys are into their contracts, but those guys are all, you get down to Jalen Johnson just re-signed. He's at 19 and he's at 7. Jalen Ramsey is he's at 18. Tre'Davious White's at 17. And then the top 10 rounding out is Carlton Davis at 14. So there's a pretty good dip between 9 and 10. That's where I think somewhere in that 17 range that AJ Terrell signs, Pat Surtain is going to blow that out of the water.
Yeah, and looking at it, of those guys you named, Carlton Davis, his contract voids in 2025, and then Jalen Ramsey in 2026, and everybody else is 2027 or beyond that. So it's all these top guys with these top contracts, they just signed them within the last year or two.
KB asked, and Michael, great to see you. The sun set tonight. Thanks for coming in, Michael. Appreciate the stars. Breaking the ice for us there over on Facebook. KB says, has Stephon Gilmore been signed yet? I don't think so. He's in that, I'm an old guy and I don't really feel like going into July practices anymore in my career. I'll show up when you need me. Call me. I'll be there. I'm keeping in shape on my own and a nice air conditioning, and I'll be there. And frankly, Eric, speaking of a friend of ours, I think Justin Simmons is kind of doing the same thing. People are like, Justin Simmons is not under contract because nobody wants him.
No.
I think he's just taking his time.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, there was a lot of talk that he's going to sign right after the draft. And, once we got 2 weeks after that and he still didn't sign, it just kind of changes. Like, he's not signing because he's waiting it out. He'll sign in training camp, miss all the stuff, stuff, and he's been around it long enough. Same with Gilmore. They've been around long enough. We see this happen with veterans pretty frequently, especially over the last 5-10 years. They don't want to do the OTAs. They don't want to do the mini camps. They don't want to do the amping up stuff in training camp. They just want to get back, get into it, and we'll see them sign probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, there's no way he's sitting out this season. I mean, could he wait until middle of the year when someone calls? Maybe he could. Be a nice way to go, but I think he probably wants to play all 17 games. But I think Justin Simmons is sitting out because he wants to. He's probably already got a deal, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, come on in first, show up first week. Philippines Waterfalls coming in. He says hello from Talibong. I haven't been to the Philippines. Billy Ron Island in the Philippines, and then he signed off, I think, with someone else. A different account. Correcting. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but welcome in. Appreciate you being here. Roy is here. Roy, good to see you, Roy. Let's talk to Coach. Coach says Scott's stepping up, trying to. Erick called. He says he needed the lefty to come in from the bullpen, so he brought in the lefty to fill us out. So we'll see how the show goes tonight. We'll probably go 30 minutes or so and then call it a night, but wanted to make sure we got a chance to say hello. And Coach makes it easier with guys like you and the GLP. Gary, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while, so I hope you're doing okay. Coming in tonight with a super chat. He says, hey, Erick, Scott, Broncos country. So is Bowles the next one to get paid? Go Broncos. Good segue, because this is a question, we may have talked a little bit about it, but I don't think I've ever quite put you on the spot. When we start getting into the non-guaranteed portion of contracts, usually either guys are getting waived or they're getting new deals. There's a couple of guys on here, and we know very much about one of them. Cortland Sutton does not want to play on non-guaranteed money. What's going on with Garrett Bowles? Because he's in the same boat. The difference is he's only got 1 year left of non-guaranteed money, where Cortland Sutton has 2 years left. Nobody wants to play on a week-to-week contract for 2 years, where at any given moment you could lose everything. The way those contracts are set up, because frankly, NFL contracts are BS. But what is going on with Garrett Bowles that he hasn't somehow either been extended, moved, that they're taking that big cap hit on him on the last year of his deal and risk losing him for nothing?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I figured at the very least, and we still might. I mean, we could still see something happen over the next couple of years next couple of weeks where he gets an extension. I figured by now you would have a year or two extension done with Garrett Bowles to lock him in, because we don't have a replacement option on the roster. And they didn't draft somebody to develop to replace him after this year. There isn't an option. And typically with that, when you're a team that's rebuilding and trying to get back to being competitive, you kind of need that left tackle, especially for a rookie quarterback. And while Garrett Bowles isn't, the best left tackle, he's decent enough as a starter that you want to lock him in and don't want to lose him for nothing. So yeah, he's one of the guys that I'd be very keen to see get an extension. I think he should get an extension for a year or two. But as for playing under this thing, I don't know. It's been ever since Sean Payton came in, it's always been Garrett Bowles is on his way out for, the year and a half now that it's been. It was a big talk last year during the 2023 draft that Garrett Bowles was potentially going to get traded and never did. I know there were some calls made, but nothing ever materialized. So I don't know what the situation is there, but it's definitely uncommon compared to what you see happen most of the time with, the contracts that are no longer guaranteed.
I'm shocked, to be honest with you, that he is still playing on that same contract with a $20 million cap hit. Now, to me, it says a bunch of things. We always say, watch what they do, not what they say. And no one's going to call it a rebuild. But basically, every move they have made this year indicates we don't expect to be overly competitive this year.
Yeah.
If they were, they would have cut his cap number in half and used that money to sign free agents. Am I wrong?
No.
Instead, you can go down to zero. Let's move on from Garrett Bowles. We'll zero out his contract, draft a replacement, sign a replacement, do something. But are you looking at Mike McGlinchey at left tackle next year? Are you looking at a rookie next year? Or are you looking at a cut price free agent next year? Or are you looking at Garrett Bowles on a 3-year, and this is the numbers I threw out yesterday on the Mile High Huddle podcast, 3-year, $45 million with 28 guaranteed, ends up being a 2-year, $28 million, 14-year contract. And I said, they probably have offered him that. And that's why he hasn't signed anything, because he wants more.
Yeah, I mean, that very well could be. When I was looking at it and doing all the digging with where I see Garrett Bowles, and obviously agents, they see them, their players differently, and teams see them differently. I had him about in that range. I can't remember the exact numbers. But I had him around there, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was an offer made for that and he just said no. It could be a situation where he's betting on himself to try to get more guaranteed money. Could be a situation where the contract offer didn't have very much guaranteed money in it, and maybe basically one year, and we'll see after that. And he wants more because he has been outspoken, and his wife is too. His wife has a TikTok, and every now and then she'll post things up. And they're very, pretty outspoken that they want to remain in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And so not having that job certainty for, beyond this year probably bothers him. Probably bothers him if they did give him a contract, that if it was for 1 year, and we'll see a lot of speculation. And there's just a lot going on. He could be betting on himself for multiple different reasons. The team could be fine in wanting to see what they can get out of Alex Palczewski to take over at left tackle, because he did look all right there last preseason, but that was last preseason, and a lot has happened since then. That they haven't offered anything, and they're just kind of waiting and seeing what happens. So there's a lot that's up in the air and unknown, but it's still a very weird situation.
I agree. You think some of it is he seems kind of worn out, like just down, like, God bless, I'm tired of the losing. I'm tired of it. And again, so part of that means on this deal, again, he's got a $20 million cap hit. It's the biggest on the team, the biggest active on the team, outside of Russell Wilson's. It's the biggest on the team, and it's flexible. He's got a $4 million dead. That's $16 million of available money that's just sitting there one way or another, through a restructure, through an extension, or through a move of the player. It's $16 million that's available. So it surprises me, Eric, that nothing has happened with Garrett Bowles so far. But like you said, what do you think happens over the course of the next? Let's take you to Halloween. I'm going to take you. Nobody trades starting offensive tackles, so that's just stupid, Scott. Nobody trades starting offensive tackles during the season. That doesn't happen. What happens? He's not being moved. So does he just play out this contract, or does he get an extension this year?
I think at that point, and it's tough because I've always liked Garrett Bowles with what he's overcome and everything. I've always been a fan to him. Always believed he's been, again, not great, but better than a lot of what perception is about him. And it's tough because I think at that point, it really depends on where the team is at. If they hit that point and they have like 1, maybe 2 wins, then we're going to say goodbye. We're going to let them walk. We're going to try to bet on a compensatory pick. If they're doing well, then it's okay. We're going to reevaluate, or we're going to come back to the table. Here's a 2-3 year offer. We want you extended. We want you to stay in place for it. And, sometimes being honest about it, if they don't want them there for that full length of it, is like, we want you here for at least the next year or 2. And we're going to draft somebody to try to develop and replace you. But who knows how he'll take that? It's just, again, it's a very tough situation to be in. And this is one of the reasons why you don't see it happen all that often, where a guy with a $20 million cap hit with no guaranteed money is still playing on that contract.
Yeah, either they're restructured, either they get an extension / restructure, or they're cut.
Yeah.
They're moved. It absolutely seems just odd to me. Happy freaking Friday, coming in with the stars. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the support that you are showing the Dove Valley Deep Divers and the alliteration tonight. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Good to see you, Phil, over on Facebook with the stars also. He says, good evening, Deacon Scott and Eric. At my grandson's ball game, just stepping in to say hello. Baseball, I'm guessing. Hope so. Hopefully it's a good night for baseball. The storm clouds were around here tonight, so a little tough for baseball in the Southeast, but probably good out west. So have fun tonight. Thanks for checking in, and thanks for the support of the show. David has a good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is a PS2 extension before week 1? Give me your scale on 1 to 10.
I'd probably put it as a 2. I think it's a situation of not before this season, maybe towards the end of the season, just to get it out of the way, but most likely afterwards.
Yeah, I said 3 in my mind. When that's my lucky number, maybe that's why. But my initial thought was 1, David, just because for all the reasons we talked about at the top of the show, there's 2 years left. Usually the extension gets done for first round draft picks after year 4, before the 5th year extension kicks in. They play on their extension. Apologies. They play on their 5th year option, and then the extension kicks in year 6. That's kind of what I think happens with Pat Surtain. That is usually how it works. So I don't think he gets an extension before. I'm sure they're in talks and that type of stuff, but before week 1, which is what, 6 weeks out, give or take, I don't think it happens the next 6 weeks. I'd be pretty surprised on that one. David, thank you for the super chat, my friend, and I hope you are doing well. Our coffee brother, Patrick Wiltsey, says, aloha, Scott and Eric. Brandon Ayuk or no, Eric?
I'll pass. Just the cost to get him, the cost to pay him, as much as I think he could help this team, I don't think that they're in a position to afford all of that for him.
Yeah, I agree. If it's just a straight free agent, maybe. But the trade that it would cost, because San Francisco's saying, no, we don't want to trade him, that doesn't mean anything. That could be just a negotiating tactic, but it's going to cost you at least a first round pick. And I'd rather use, as expensive as these guys have gotten, especially Eric at wide receivers. It just seems, I feel like the league has gone wide receiver crazy. They're paying these wide receivers so much money. And we've seen you can get good wide receivers that can play right away in the draft through the first 3 rounds or more, but pretty reliably in the first 2 rounds, you can get them and pay them 20% of what it would cost you to get Brandon Ayuk, plus the first round draft pick that you could have used on the wide receiver to begin with. So no, I think wide receivers are overpriced right now. You know what I love, Eric? You know what I love? Second round wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
I love seeing those guys that a lot of people talk about as a first round receiver fall into the second round and go on and be successful. That's one of my favorite things every year with the draft. And tackles is another one. I like seeing that happen with tackles too. But there are 21 wide receivers in the NFL getting paid more than $20 million per year. He'll be 22. There are 4 of them over 30 million. And there's a lot of people saying that he'll be the 5th one of that. Nope, I'll pass. I'll go in. I'll try to find a receiver. Receivers are coming into the NFL in abundance year in, year out. They're always one of the deeper positions. Maybe not always, don't always have that top heavy talent, but they're always very deep. Always plenty of options. Always plenty of shots to take at the position.
Meanwhile, what's Marvin Harrison making? What was he taking? 4th overall. It's pretty good though. I mean, it's not peanuts. It's 8.8.
Yeah. It's
8.8, which makes him the 31st highest paid wide receiver. If you're going through a draft right now of wide receivers, how long before you get to Marvin Harrison? I bet it's not 31.
It'd probably be, I don't think top 10, but I think it'd definitely be top 16.
Yeah.
Top 15.
It just, I just think they're so excited. Patrick, no, the acquisition cost. And it's just that Denver Broncos, y'all know how often injuries happen, that to put that much resources into one player in football, to me, I'm more conservative than that. I'd rather have 3 $10 million guys than one $30 million guy. unless it's the quarterback or, an edge rusher. But man, there's good wide receivers all over the place. What'd you just say? There's 20 something guys making 20 plus million.
Yeah.
Really? That doesn't sound like supply and demand to me. That sounds like overpaying.
Yeah. It's just, it's insane. And like, just after, and I know that it'd be different for me with quarterbacks. It is different for me with quarterbacks. But after going through what we just did with Russell Wilson, I can't be comfortable from a fan point of view of the team going out and doing this for a wide receiver who's looking for a huge contract, who has been pretty outspoken as to where he wants to go. He's made it pretty clear he wants to go to the Commanders. I just wouldn't do it. Like I
Who
can't
wants to go to the
team
Commanders?
get,
Nobody
he
wants to go to Washington except politicians and
Jane Daniels.
lobbyists. And
He wants to play with
lobbyists.
Jane Daniels.
Politicians and lobbyists want to go to Washington. That's about it. No, I kid. I'm happy for Washington fans that they've got new ownership. Nobody deserves to be burdened with the crap owners in this billionaire boys club monopoly system that we have in sports in the United States. And it's not fair to the fans. I'm happy for them.
Yeah. It's good. And I think that with the owners, some of the hires they made, I'm curious to see what ends up happening with the Commanders over
All
the
right.
next years.
Let's hit a couple other names for you. Cortland Sutton.
2 years left on his deal. Maybe you rework the contract, give him a little bit more guaranteed money for next year. Let him play on that, and then maybe reevaluate after that point.
But as far as who's up for an extension, you could again. There's another guy. If you were interested in using free agent money, you could have lowered his salary cap. You could have taken $20 million off your own up the 2024 salary cap with extensions for Bowles and Sutton, and he didn't.
Yeah.
So those are both interesting moves to me. And now you've got two guys on non-guaranteed deals for the most part who aren't necessarily happy to be on non-guaranteed deals. And like I said the other night, Eric, when we were live, the next day we were talking about Quinn Miners' extension. Quinn Miners' extension is basically, what was it, 4 for 80, but it really boils down to 2 for 45 million. And then the guaranteed money will be gone in year 3. If he plays at a Pro Bowl level in years 1 and 2, and come year 3, he's sitting out because he's on no guaranteed money, I will support him for that too. Because those extra years of non-guaranteed money, they're accounting things. They're ways to keep the cap down. It's not fair to the players to play this sport on non-guaranteed deals.
Yeah, and with Miners' contract, I haven't seen the full breakdown of the details yet, but what little bit I've seen, I'm expecting $4 million guaranteed in year 1 with a $20 million signing bonus that's going to be spread out over the 4 years. So $5 million of the signing bonus, salary cap hit of $9 million next year, and then the remaining $21 million of his guaranteed money, most of that being his guaranteed base salary for 2026.
2026.
Yeah.
Yep. So after that, a couple other guys here. Let's go to the edge room. A couple other guys that are looking. Do they get extensions or do they hit free agency? There's 2 of them, Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper.
I think, it's such a cop-out answer, but it really depends for Baron Browning if he's able to stay on the field this year. I don't think he gets an extension before the season because his injury history, he's missed time every single season so far of his 3 years that he's played, that you just can't comfortably take a shot on it with an extension at this point. And I don't see why he would want to either, because if the team did come to the table, it's going to be basically guaranteed money for year 1 and then another 2 or 3 years of not very much guaranteed money, if any at all, because of injury guarantee. So if he gets hurt, they want to be able to get out of it. And then Cooper, it's just a thing of, with what he is for the team, I don't see a point in extending him now, and then letting him test free agency. He'll probably want to test free agency and then go on from there. But another thing is, you're talking about with Garrett Bowles and Cortland Sutton, there's a third player there that I would include with that as to being able to help out the team now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why they were with the team. DJ Jones.
Yeah.
That's another 10 million that they were able to free up for that. And they went out and they signed Malcolm Roach to replace him. And then they went and traded for John Franklin Myers, and still DJ Jones is around, eating up a lot of cap space in the final year of his deal.
We had a topic, it was a couple of weeks ago, where one of the national writers said the Broncos didn't do enough in the offseason. And typically the thoughts are they didn't do enough to get better, is usually what people are saying. In this case, what we're talking about is it's almost like they didn't do enough. They're half rebuilding. Well, we're going to get rid of Justin Simmons. We're going to move Jerry Jeudy, but we've got 3 guys where we could have cleared $30 million with either extensions or moving them, an extra $30 million in cap space in 2024, and didn't. It's Sutton, Bowles, and DJ Jones.
And that is right there. There's a starting center in there. I mean, if you really wanted to keep Lloyd Cushenberry, you can move on from DJ Jones and basically flip the salary cap hit, over to Lloyd Cushenberry with an extension. Because right now the Broncos have the worst center room. I mean, I know it's a lot about, the potential, but as much as I like Alex Forsyth, he was still viewed not super high as a center, even without, not factoring in the injury. And then Luke Wattenberg, who he's been better as a guard. He was better as a guard last year. And then Sam Musfer, who's one of the worst centers. So you could have used that money that you freed up. You could have gotten another cheaper left tackle that, probably could give you something similar to what Garrett Bowles gives you. Gotten a center, could have probably added yet another defensive lineman for depth with a clear starter, Malcolm Roach, to replace DJ Jones. Just so much they could have done. And it's just kind of like for lack of a better way to put it, it's almost like a little bit of a directionless boat out at sea that they're not sure which way they wanted to go. Can we be competitive, or do we need to rebuild? And they just kind of like stayed in the middle of it.
Start talking about, being half pregnant.
Yeah.
we're gonna go half on this. Ron comes in. He's got some names, over 40 players showing free agency in 2025. Notables to me are Bowles, Kroll, Browning, McMillan, Griffith, Javante, Pirine, Little Jordan. Some of those you don't know if they'll be on the team, and some of those are not unrestricted free agents. Some of them you've got exclusive rights in there. So of all those lists, I know Kroll, I think, is an exclusive rights where they're basically not free agents.
No,
they're not really free agents. And Roy's not real happy about it. He says the center room stinks. The good news is, how good do you think Lloyd Cushenberry was last year?
I think he was significantly improved from what we got out of him the first 3 years.
That's not an answer. I said, how good do you think he was?
I don't think he was good enough to earn the contract that he got, but I think he was good enough to show that he can be a decent enough starter.
I think he played at about average level. I think he played one of the stats I really love in baseball is WAR, wins against replacement, meaning here's an average player in the NFL. Where are you compared to an average player? I think he'd be right around 0, which would mean he was right around average. For me, that's the good news. I mean, whether you think the center room isn't good or not, isn't great or not, it wasn't worth pouring $15 million into, Eric. I promise you that.
It's just, I don't, fully disagree there. It's just the fact of having someone who can be a decent enough starter. And this is a bad team. They're not going to get away with underpaying players. They're going to have to pay a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Similarly to the Titans, they're a team that's kind of trying to rebuild. They just lost their star player for the last, 8 years, however long it's been with Derrick Henry. So they probably had to feel like they had to overpay a little bit. So $15 million would be a little bit rich, but it's still, center's one of the more undervalued positions because of how much they can take off the quarterback, especially when at the time we were going with either We figured the rookie quarterback was coming in, and Jarrett Stidham we're gonna be competing. Maybe Sam Darnold, I think at this time was still possibly an option, but whoever it was, you needed somebody who could help take some pressure off them at the line with some of the calls, and Cushberry could do that a little bit, and none of the guys that they have can.
Last guy I want to ask you about, and then we're going to get going in here. Javonte Williams. Where is he in 2024?
I think
Where
he
is he in 2025?
I think he's the starter for the Broncos this year, and then they allow him to walk. But I am also very against giving running back second contracts.
I get that, but what is the contract? I guess it just depends on what the contract is. A lot of times you see this being a monster second contract, the rookie deals, and then even if you get off your rookie deal as a veteran, you make 4 times more, even if you're the same guy. That's not going to happen anymore. I don't, so it depends on what it is. Is he $3 to $5 million on a second deal? Okay. Yeah. I'd be willing to go year to year on something like that. With Javonte, if he has a good season, but you don't want to go a 3-year deal with 2 guaranteed at $10 million per. But I think, God, if there's 2 guys on the Denver Broncos you want to root for from a personal point of view. I mean, obviously everybody wants Bo Nix. If Bo Nix is the guy, if you can root for anybody to be the guy this year, you want it to be Bo Nix.
Yeah.
But from a personal standpoint, the 2 guys that I want to see thrive are Javonte Williams and Tim Patrick.
I'd love to see Tim Patrick thrive and Javonte Williams as well. For me, Garrett Bowles, again, I've talked about that. I mentioned that earlier. He'd be my third one right there with him. Seeing guys come back from injuries, especially with Tim Patrick, 2 consecutive injuries, almost exactly a year apart. And with what he was injury prone, for lack of a better way to put it, throughout his collegiate career. Early on in his career in Denver, he was suffering some minor injuries. I'd love to see him go out there and have just a huge season and just dominate, basically.
Yeah, Kenny says I want to see Browning shine the most, and like I said, it's not about what would be the best for the Broncos, because what would be best for the Broncos if you can pick any guy to start to shine, it's the quarterback.
Yeah.
It's Bo Nix, but for Kenny, Baron Browning has fought it too. He's battled through this stuff. I mean, Greg Dulcich. Are you wondering? His is different because there's no X-rays, there's no MRIs. So, he tore this into shreds, and we had to do surgery. Hamstrings are they're voodoo. I said that the first time. Who was the corner 3 years ago when I first started? There's a corner that busted his hamstring in preseason.
Oh,
and missed 14 games. Nickel. It was a nickel guy that I think ended up with the Chargers. Doesn't matter. But when it happened, I was like, sometimes you're better off just breaking a leg as to messing with these. The hamstrings are like voodoo. And I think you start getting on a guy like Dulcich because you can't see it. And you start thinking he's not really hurt because of hamstrings. So, I mean, Dulcich is a guy too you'd like to see come back in a big way.
Caden Stearns, 2 snaps and at the start of the season will be 2 snaps played in 700 days. Caden Stearns, I liked him a lot pre-draft, and that it's my thing is with going to Greg Dulcich here before we get out of here is just one reason why I root for him is because of how many Bronco fans out there are rooting for him to fail.
Yeah. And like I said, part of it's because he's got an injury you can't see.
Yeah.
And so it's he's okay. I mean, you could walk around normally without a limp with a hamstring that you can't play on. And it almost feels fake. And I'm not saying he's faking. I'm just saying it's not the same as, all right, check out somebody who's had knee surgery and they've got zippers up and down their knees. Something was going on there. So on that note, y'all, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate you spending Friday night with us. I hope you had a good time. I'm going to speak for Eric. I know we did. I want to say thanks to our Super Chat superstars who came in to support the show. Michael Ronquillo, Coach, GLP, Gary Leeds Palmer, David Cromwell, Howie Frickin' Day, and Phil McLaughlin. Thank you so much, y'all. Want to give y'all a reminder. I don't do this very often, so hopefully I won't mess this up too bad. Make sure you're checking out we're the Dove Valley Deep Divers, but we are the Mile High Huddle podcast on Apple Pod, Spotify, all those places where you find it. We're all into the Mile High Huddle podcast banner. You can always check out facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Get a hat. Get that Dove Valley Deep Divers hat. I like your hat better than the Broncos for breakfast one. That's kind of weird. Go get a hat. Go get some merch. MHHmerch.com. We're on Instagram too, at mile_high_huddle. Go to Apple Pods. Leave your football priest, your deacon, the big man over here, a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag. And as always, try and if you've got a chance, that's a ticker anyway that I just put on the bottom. Subscribe, like, and share. Eric, any last words before we get going?
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say congratulations to Malcolm Brown. He's in there, not on his normal account. He's on what I'm assuming is his work account on Facebook. But congratulations on the engagement, my friend. Best wishes to you and the lady. And I saw that you brought over a bunch of Bronco jerseys as well, and that's awesome.
Very cool. Congratulations, Malcolm. Thank you for being part of the show. We are going to get out of here. I hope you all have a hell of a weekend. Don't forget the orange and blue view tomorrow night. Your priest will be back on Sunday, and then it's football week. Y'all have a great weekend. Appreciate you being with us. We'll see you next time.